But yeah, it's coming along. We're taking over the new technology on how to have meetings and everything and conduct them remotely and make sure that we still follow along with all the statutes and laws and stuff that are in place in the state of New Hampshire, which are making it challenging. So we're trying to find the mechanisms in which we can still satisfy, I guess, the our legal requirements compared to also what's practical and realistic for us to be able to still gather together and figure it all out.
So I just flipped on the recording, so just to give you a heads up. So I guess I'll give you like 10 minutes, or not even 10 minutes. I'll give you a few minute overview on kind of what I'm doing here, because I know I just sort of like hit you up out of the blue. So ultimately for me, like I feel like obviously this is sort of hopefully this is sort of a generational thing that we're going through, right? And just sort of watching the situation evolve, sort of reminded me of other historical events that have, taken place throughout time. And I've always sort of wondered personally, like, hey, you read about World War II, you read about the Great Depression, you read about the oil embargo. And I've always sort of wondered, like, hey, what was life really like in those times, right? Like, what were people worrying about? Like, what was the news like? Like, all that sort of stuff that you can't really capture. You can read about it. You can kind of try to understand the political atmosphere and, kind of what's going on and what people are thinking about. So it's like, hey, it'd be kind of cool or interesting, or at least I think it'd be kind of interesting just to sort of almost like a live journal of just what's going on out there, kind of how people are being exposed to different data, sort of what their thought process is, and just kind of how life has changed for different people. So that's pretty much what I'm doing, just to kind of give you a little bit of the background. Nothing like super fancy. I just, if anything, it's like kind of a little sociological document, I guess, or sort of like an art piece that I've got just kind of cubed up, and I'm just trying to collect all this information. So I've just gone around sort of calling different buddies who I think could have an interesting perspective on it, or have been uniquely impacted.
Yeah, I'd rather get the hug.
Nope. I'm still listening. Moxie, give me a
hug. So that's kind of what's going on. I just wanted to give you the rundown.
Yeah, no, it kind of seems like a neat way to look at this, because it's, I think this is definitely, without question, something that many of us are going to look back on for as long as we can remember. It's the time that a virus essentially shut down several aspects of our economy and our government, and things that are not considered necessary or essential to running not town politics, but town government and national governments and everything, and state governments at every level. Many of the non-essential items are being changed and tested. So, right here at the town level, just put it in perspective, things like, library meetings and I just speak to that one specifically because that's one that I'm a representative for, and basically, look, it is not an essential component. The library is closed down, and it's not an essential meeting that's going to make or break any of the differences that are going to occur moving forward. So, we only need to have in office or in our town hall, in our town government, the actual essential items that need to be run. So, we've got our town administrator, he's in his office. We've got, our deputy town clerk, just that one clerk. Is in there, and one of the things that we're trying to do to kind of maintain and try to keep regular balances. We've got governments we've got our budget in place that's supposed to already be paying these people's salaries, but we can't have them all in there at the same amount of time. So we're already planning to have them, so we're like, what, one person in at a time, running the room, running that operation, and we set up drop boxes and set people out and said, look, you got to pay your tax bill, you've got to register your car, you drop it in the drop box, it gets processed, and we'll reach out to you directly. I mean, the upsides of this going on right now is, this happened 50 to 100 years ago, and you have none of this technology, and you're forced to be out there. And, the benefit is, like, right now, I mean, I look at the amount of technology that's out there. We have so much at our hands to be able to do the majority of the work that we're already doing, without even having to interact, which is a good thing. And unfortunately, there's still some trades and some skill, professions out there that you have to be working directly with people.
On.
But yeah, exactly. And so I just think that I think in my mind, the only way to function with that stuff is the people that still need to make a living, like interacting with others, like, your grocery store workers, right? They still need to be there, but, there's health code stuff out there. I mean, we talked about that on some of the calls I've had in the past week or so with, that have been on with the state and stuff. And kind of the conversations about, if the restaurant, for instance, is doing takeout is still following normal health code practices, then in theory, then they're completely safe. And then at the same time, there's always the same risk that, somebody isn't practicing good hygiene and good health, health practices, preparing food. So that's also a risk that you run. And you got to trust the people that are preparing your food for you. Alternatively, stay in your house and make your own food. It's the other option.
Yeah, exactly. A risk you got to be willing to take. So are you? So you're on the board of selectmen. So how has this all been communicated from the state? I mean, has that been pretty? I hate to say even or suppose it would be seamless, but I mean, I imagine they've been pretty proactive in outreach. It's been pretty regular communications and cadence and what they expect and how things are going to change, what they need from you guys, or what's that been like?
So it's actually been obviously this is my first year as a Board of Selectmen, so my exposure to this has been literally thrusted into the mix of stuff. And I was trying to catch up on some of the things that I just had no idea about in the role as a selectman. And so, and then, so that we have the state of emergency. We have basically, we formed an EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center, which is down at the safety complex. And the fire chief, Don DeAngelis, he's kind of the head of the EOC. We have representatives of the EOC that are down there. And it basically, what's been interesting is, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we've had calls from it's got the Attorney General on there. We've got the people from DHHS. We've got people from Primax Insurance, insurance carriers. We've actually had Governor Sununu has been on some of these calls, and they just give us updates on where they're going, what we're being asked to do, what we're asking the town to do, getting updates on what we're trying to change. So one of the biggest challenges that I've seen just from listening to these calls, it's usually, there are a couple hours worth of the calls. These are just the ones with the state, not let alone the ones that we're having directly with our town administrator and each of the selectmen and such.
Sure.
But we have a lot of concerns. Like if we think about, we have 91A, RSA 91A is a really big topic right now. There's certain things about, if the Board of Selectmen have a meeting, it has to be posted 24 hours ahead of time. We have to have a public gathering space with an availability for public to solicit comment. We should be meeting in person. It's just the list goes on, and all of the questions go, no, that doesn't make, there's a logic behind that. Just makes no sense. We're being told no gatherings more than 10, but we legally can't tell people from the public, like, well, you should spread out your chairs.
Which law do you want us to break, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it was really funny because I was of the opinion that, when your commander in chief says he lowers the public gathering to 10. Okay, well, if you count Greg Dodge, our secretary, Joyce, and then you get the 5 selectmen, there's 7 right there. Then you have at least one person running ETD, you're at 8. That means only 2 people from the public are going to be allowed in to be part of this meeting. And it's like, you can't function like that. It doesn't work. So what I did, and I said, our best approach to 91A and trying to mitigate that is going to be to, the only thing I had available to me was my work computer and my work email account. And we have Skype for Business on there. I said, for the purpose of this, I can record that meeting. We can post it. We can share it. And at least that way we can still have an emergency meeting. So we posted it as quickly as we could that we were going to get together and have an emergency meeting. I mean, I'm sitting there in a sweatshirt. It's just the time that we had. This is what we were in my dining room. So
Yeah.
we all got on a call, discussed what we needed to do, how we wanted to do it, and kind of how to move forward. We've set up one more meeting. We did that, I think, on Thursday, and I've basically taken both recordings. We submitted them over to ETV. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see them, but it's kind of funny to see the video chat between myself, Greg Dodge, Adam, and it's just not everybody's on video chat because you can still call in, and Selectman Mike Urjo and Bob Jordan, they're both, they still have to go into work to do their job, and so they called in from their phones. But our actual Board of Selectmen meeting this upcoming Monday. I guess the town, we just basically made the decision and said to the heck with it. We don't care what it costs. We need to get a Zoom for Business account so that we can have the public actively participate in our meetings, and broadcast it. And, so it'll be a normal Board of Selectmen meeting with the exception of the fact that it's virtual, and people in town will still have the ability to specifically ask questions, and we're going to put out our Town of Epping email. Actually, I think we've already done that. We'll put our Town of Epping email addresses out on the Town Hall Facebook page, and hopefully people will be able to fire us questions and stuff, and we'll be able to address those as a side note of keeping our daily operations running. Because the one thing we're trying to avoid is completely shutting down the economy to resolve this, but really only have it to be essential people that are in, the way I personally separating the selection aspect to it, I don't want to see somebody, that, does, let's say, landscaping. I don't want to see them not be able to, I don't want to see them lose their job, because in theory, you can do a pretty good job limiting public interaction and interaction with other individuals, still be able to do your job and still make money and still get paid in theory.
Absolutely.
And the more we can kind of make that happen, the better. It's the situations where you've got, like, I'll use my job as an example. If I separate the stuff that I'm doing as a selectman, in theory, as a project manager, designer, as long as we have people that are hiring us to do work, I can still continue to function to do that from home. I don't need to be in the office to do it. It's a different way of coordinating with my team of designers to get projects done than I would normally do. I can normally walk up to their desk and talk to them. Well,
right.
And now I have to, in this case, Skype them.
Yeah, exactly. And I do wonder, that's a great example, especially at the town level. Hey, you went out and got Zoom for Business accounts, and now you can, in theory, even after this is over and done, potentially carry that forward after this pandemic is through. So I'm sort of curious and have this, unique questioning on how many things, when we're all said and done, and you brought it up with technology being such an active part of where we're at today, but how many things are just, we're going to adapt and they're just never going to be the same, right? Even some of them for better,
Oh, the irony is if you watch the couple meetings that we have right now, we are very, very, like, one of the first things I kept saying is this is going to be a lessons learned. We have a lessons learned moment here. We've never been prepared for something like this, and we're having to adapt legislature that's been sitting, our state statutes that have been sitting in place for, God, decades, and that we haven't updated, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, now they're holding us back, and we're being told on one hand that we have to make sure that we comply with some of these laws, and it's like, but you can kind of get the general sense that as long as you're doing the best you can to provide everything, that it seems like there's going to be a little bit of laxing, because they know that they're working towards trying to make sure that they're trying to lift these regulations, but it's a long, drawn-out process. It's hard to just go and blindly change, state statutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So another big one is interesting is like our medical team. It's actually a really interesting one. Like, we have a law that you have to have 2 licensed ambulance operators in an ambulance, and that's one of the ones they're trying to change, because you don't want to go and expose 2 first responders to a virus, and then, because that means you could potentially lose 2 people. So we're trying to get
both of them. Yeah.
Change that. Yeah.
So you personally, when did you kind of start following the virus and take concern or take note?
I would say I wish it was sooner. So actually last week, we were talking about it when it first started we first started hearing about cases of it in the United States. And then, so I had actually, it was the week before that. Let's see, I'm just looking at the date right now. So we actually had, our company sent out an email telling us, oh, you know what? We have one office. Somebody says they might've been exposed to it out in California. And the irony is that office, we had 2 people come from that office to our office in Concord. And we're like, you got to be kidding me. And I'm like, well, this is perfect. I haven't been in for a day anyways. I can't remember why, but I don't think Moxie was at school on a Friday or something like that. And so I was home, or we were home for whatever reason. And so I was like, all right, I'm out Friday. I can work from home. And then I was out Monday. And then, all right, I'll go back in on Tuesday. So I went back in on Tuesday for a little bit of time. This was last week. And then I got told that I had to go to Buffalo, New York. So I drove all the way to Buffalo, New York in a rental car, stayed in a hotel, and I literally just did not want to go anywhere outside of that. I was like, I'm going to go do my job and get all the way back. So I went from New Hampshire to Buffalo by car, and my boss was like, hey, you can fly. I was like, no, he's like, but I recommend driving. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to take the car. I don't mind driving.
I'm good.
It's not a big deal.
I'm good with recycled air right now. Thank you.
Exactly. If I don't like it, I can roll the window down. So
yeah, no, it's funny. It's so I've sort of taken the opposite end of that. So I started following it mid-January, I'd say, and I've made myself a little crazy about it because I just went like down the wormhole, and I've just been following everything super closely since, for what's that, almost 2 months now. And it got to a point, I was traveling last week. I was down in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I was flying down there, and I already had, and this was really before anything was really canceled. There were some cases, but it was like before the NBA and all that stuff. But my anxiety was through the roof getting on an airplane and all that stuff. And I like borderline had a mental breakdown down there. I was like, oh my God, like this is it. I'm going to die. Like coronavirus, this is going to be so bad. Like I like flipped out with just
you're like, oh, I gotta go home now and everything. Yeah, I get it.
My kids. It was just like a bad night, a bad day, like just a bad time. And then, as this thing has unfolded, it's been remarkable how similar it's been to where it's been exposed overseas, and we've had good access like in Italy and Spain and France. So you're really watching like the same thing happen over and over and over again. So that was part of the catalyst too in doing all this. It was just like I felt like I was on the kind of on the ahead of the curve on some of the data and sort of the impact, and it was just like it's just profoundly interesting to me just how we all react to it and what information's out there and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, it is really fascinating. One thing I got to say is like, I wish I've been so busy with work leading up to this that normally I'm like I'm a little bit more in the loop and I'm paying attention a little bit more, but like even things like my investments, like I don't know why I'm looking at it going like, I know that I should have like transferred some stuff into a little bit more secure, like, a little less aggressive accounts and stuff. And I would have been ahead of the game. And I'm looking at it going, now I'm like, okay, well, how much of this can I recover by doing some more investments and stuff? Because I don't feel like this is a forever situation. And I do think that it's a short-term thing. So it's, how can I try to make the best of it and recover quicker from the, your investment side of things as well.
Sure.
That's actually one of the things that, Adam and I have been talking about a lot lately is like, okay, well, what do we do when, in this situation? Because I remember back in 2008 when we had the big economic downturn then, I was not nearly ready to be investing like that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, what can I do? So I got bored and I started investing. And had I actually done something with it, I would be sitting a lot different, right? A lot more different right now.
Right.
But it's like, you have that hindsight and you're like, oh, you just see see pretty much most markets drop somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 50%, depending upon what the industry you're in.
That's what they call it, discount.
That's how I look at it. It's like all of a sudden you're at a buy levels again. So
Well, especially so back then it was a lot because I remember my boss one day came in and he was like, "Hey," and I don't remember the number, but he was talking about Citibank specifically, and he knew I was 24 or something. He's like, "Phil, should I buy a bunch of Citibank stock?" I was like, I don't know, man. Like, why are you asking me?"
Yeah.
And in retrospect, it was like, holy shit, he should have just put all of his money into Citibank, and he'd be a millionaire now, And today,
I did that with everything. The old school Google Finance, right? I used to track all the stocks. I had bought so many things. I was like, all I was doing, I was like, okay, yeah, let's put a pot of 10 grand together, and if I buy $500 or $1,000 of all these different stocks, what would it be? And I looked at it like not that long ago. I'm like, I'm devastated. I remember I owned a Sirius satellite radio. Had I pulled the trigger when I said I wanted to, it was like 4.5 or 5 cents, and it was like $6 at one point. And I'm like, wow, what did I do wrong here? But yeah. So it's an interesting time though.
I think on this one it's going to be your travel, right? It's going to be American Airlines or Delta. See how far down they get. And
it's interesting. I'm looking in my E-Trade account, and I literally have the ones that I've been watching are my airlines, your cruise lines, your hotel line chains, and the one that I'm really watching close is Disney, because I know Disney has closed. They're down about 30-ish% right now. They were like trending about $150 a share. They're down around $90 a share right now. And it's like, man, they're right there. I mean, that's a really good buy-in. And out of all companies, Disney's not going out of business anytime soon.
No,
they should recover quick. So, yeah, it's a really interesting time though, because I think the biggest challenge. I mean, Jill and I, obviously, we've kind of talked about it a couple times. We're like, dude, if we were all able to just say, to the heck with this, and everybody just said, I'm going to stay in my house for 3 straight weeks or 4 straight weeks, whatever it is. In theory, should be able to put a stop to this.
Right.
But it's almost impossible to encourage a culture. It's the irony is that we kind of look at it, and me specifically, I've said this a lot, that Americans are kind of overprivileged in the sense that you kind of get to do what you want, when you want, how you want, and nobody really realizes it until you start restricting it. And so the slightest restriction, everybody goes up in arms over it, and it's like, oh my gosh, and it's insane, and it's like it's just like, come on. So yeah, I wish I actually didn't go out to Buffalo there last week, because it was funny. I put my head on that pillow and I was like, oh crap, who else is on this pillow? And I looked at it from the standpoint that, there's no cases in Buffalo right now. This is not a bad idea. Get straight to Buffalo, get straight back to New York. New York's having a hard time. And like, no joke, as soon as I got back home from Buffalo, they're like, oh, we got 4 new cases. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and what's concerning too is they did such a poor job of containing it from the get-go, and that's what made me crazy. Was you're watching it and they're putting in all these containment measures, like, oh, we found this case in Seattle and we're gonna quarantine them and we're tracking them down. But meanwhile, it's like watching that arcade game with the groundhogs that pop up, right? And you whack
oh,
them.
Yeah.
Like that's all they were doing, because you could see like, oh, there's a hot spot in New York, there's a hot spot in Seattle, and they're pretending like, oh, we have it covered. Meanwhile, there's like clear evidence of community spread all over the place. So it's like, guys, let's quit playing the game like we're gonna quarantine and track this down and find everybody. Like it's gone. We missed that window. We got to start playing mitigation now. And
the second we knew that there was issues of it coming over, they should have just locked down. I mean, they should have just locked down international travel right from the start when they saw an international problem. It would have stopped it, or not stopped it, but at least would have helped reduce the potential for incoming. Because now you look at it, we had our first 8 cases in New Hampshire were literally all people that had traveled to Europe or Italy.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, guys. Like, this is odd. And then the problem is that those 8 people are like, oh, I came back from Italy. I'm starting to feel the symptoms. But it's not them, because if they go into self-quarantine, it's their entire family that has now been contaminated, and they're still going about their daily life. And it's like, people just don't want to nobody wants a lifestyle change. It's like, it's not a big deal to make a lifestyle change.
Nobody wants to do it. Not a temporary one, especially. It's
Yeah.
It's been easy for me for the most part because number one, I'm an introvert, and number two, I work from home anyways. So so to
So you get
a
to keep
large
it.
degree, it's like this is perfect. No adjustment for me. I'm good to go. So
Yeah, the kicker for me was, I mean, Jill and I can both work from home. The trouble being is that, we both have conference calls, and we both, like, my selected ones are kind of very difficult to try to schedule out, and it's like,
oh yeah,
and then try to throw on top of the fact that you got Moxie who's sitting there going, I gotta get my I got to make sure that she's getting schooled.
I want to play
right?
Prodigy.
And,
I want to play Prodigy. I want to play.
Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. But I think it's actually, I got to say, I think that part of me is like the remote learning thing and the drive for people to want to have that personal interaction and obviously, like, Alice and Moxie even did it. Then they had their, like, reading session with each other. It's like, Moxie's been loving it, and it's been a really kind of a cool thing to see how many people are trying to, like, still get your person-to-person or face-to-face interaction without, just doing it in a virtual sense. And it's
Sure.
like, we were just making making plans to have a game night with our friends virtually, because they have the same game, and we're like, wait, we could play this as a group. This would be great.
We all got to get PS4s, man. What are we doing?
I know, right? So I think the kicker for me is I've never had to print. Like, pretty much everything I do from home, I don't have to print. And I went to turn on my printer that I had from college, and it was in 2004. And I was like, yeah, and I guess it's 32-bit, and nothing runs on 32-bit anymore. And it's got the whole cable, and neither my computer or Jill's computer could hook up to it. And we're like, crap. So the first thing I had to do is go on Amazon and buy a printer so we could print off schoolwork from Moxie.
Yeah, we've gone through like a ream of paper in the last 4 days. Or 5 days. It's crazy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I had the first. I think it was 2 nights ago. Alice had the first, like, bedtime breakdown over this, and it wasn't too serious, but it was the first time, because, like I said, it hadn't really affected me personally, but I was putting her to bed, and she was like, I really miss my friends and Moxie and Natalie, and I just felt terrible, because it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess it would probably hit you pretty hard when you're in first grade, you don't get to see your friends anymore. Yeah. That's a bummer.
It is kind of weird though, because, like, I look back at it and I kind of think about it from the standpoint of, like, this is sort of what, I mean, you are kind of like what you or I maybe grew up with, in the sense that, like, oh, you want to talk to your friends, you're going to pick up a telephone and you're going to call them. Like, it's kind of like, wait a minute, not. I don't know. Just you have FaceTime. That's. I mean, FaceTime is a pretty cool feature. That
what are you complaining about?
Wait, what is that? Yeah. But
cool.
Yeah,
So
it is a weird time though.
So did you do any, like, prep? Stockpiling, or what's your, like?
No. I gotta tell you, the one thing that I guess there's my two big frustrations out there right now is, one, we have one of the best supply chains in the world, in my opinion, and being somebody who works for an engineering firm that designs and builds these manufacturing facilities and works on these distribution centers for food distribution, for consumer goods, for general basically consumer goods. It's like the supply chain that's in place, there's zero reason to go on a surge, other than the fact that it's like, because the worst case, they're never going to put you no government's going to put you in a situation where you're going to be locked in your house and you're going to starve to death. Like, that's not.
I wouldn't say no government. I mean, China did that, but
yeah. But the U.S., I don't think they would do it in that sense. But I think even with China and, like, some of those things, maybe I'm mistaken, but I believe they were still trying to find a way to provide the essentials to people. I mean, this whole toilet paper fad, I kind of laugh about it, in the sense that it's like, if you're in a situation where you need toilet paper because you just went number 2, I'm like, oh, you're sitting on the john next to your shower. You can really get clean if you really had to. It's kind of like a joke. Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But it's just people, this is where I look at it from Americans. They only know one way to live. So I guess in my sense, yeah, I went out to the grocery store earlier this week. I was super anal about everything and
touching anything.
Yeah.
I like held
oh
my
my God.
breath the first time I went out.
Oh my God. I was watching this woman handling, like she had the bag of chips in the cart and she's just housing chips as she's walking through the aisles. God. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You're the kind of person that's causing this thing. And the funny part is like the one thing I did is I looked up how long it lasts. And so it's funny. We've got typical cleaning supplies and stuff in our house. And I made the decision. I'm like, okay, anything that's like, not like produce or whatever, it can stay in the car. I don't need to take it out. Anything that's perishable that I need to get in the refrigerator, I'll wipe it down with a Clorox wipe. I'll put it away, and we'll try to keep our food clean and stuff like that I'm bringing in, because this is all coming from an outside source, and who knows who touched it. So why don't I try to be mindful? And so we did that. And the other way I looked at it too is, the benefit of, I look at it from the standpoint, the benefit of being a hunter. I have a freezer full of venison meat. I've got tons of fish down there. I've got all kinds of stuff. And I work in the brewing industry, so I got all the beer I need. I got a full liquor cabinet. Yeah, exactly. I got what I need.
Yeah,
so there's really no need to go out.
One of my favorite things that I saw wiped off the shelves was in Market Basket earlier this week, and it was bottled water. And I'm thinking to myself, like 90% of the people that would shop at this Market Basket probably have wells, for starters. And secondly, like the coronavirus is not going to affect the water supply. Like why are we stockpiling water right now?
I was watching people do that when I was there. Yeah, it was crazy. And the big kicker was I could not get over the number of license plates from Massachusetts that had come up. And I think because their supply chain has been taxed more based on population, I'm guessing. But when I went in there, I think it was Wednesday, I think I went to Market Basket, and I was just like, when I drove into the parking lot, I'm like, oh my God, this is literally like more Massachusetts cars than New Hampshire cars. And as a general rule, I feel like most of my network in this town has done a pretty good job of just kind of self-containing and staying in. You got a few people that are pushing the envelope of like, I'm going to go about my daily life. It is what it is. And it's kind of like, well, you know what? Thanks. Because you're the reason that you're the reason why this is not going to go away anytime soon. But boy.
Yeah. Part of me wishes, and I kind of go back and forth on this because, they just put last night, California put in the shelter in place, and New York did. And I just read that Illinois did, I think, too. And part of me wishes Massachusetts would do it just to keep it down there, like just to keep the assholes out. But then the other half of me is like, well, if Massachusetts does it, it seems like every time Massachusetts announces
we're like a day or two behind.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, I'm a little concerned about that.
So I know like the National Guard talk that actually was brought up today on the call with the state. Somebody, one of the towns asked it, like, is this something that's being kicked around? And I think it was the Attorney General. I can't remember who it was that said it, but came right out and said it hasn't even been something that's been thrown on the table. It's not like it's something that isn't a possibility, but it's not something that's being discussed right now. And in part, I'm kind of like, you know what? Granted, I'm in a different situation where I can self-sustain. I can guarantee that I can live out of everything I've got in my house right now for probably a couple months and be fine.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm not worried about it. Why? Not because I stockpiled, just because it's, it's what I've got in the house. So, and let's be real.
I mean, even the most extreme shelter in place, they're still letting people go out to the grocery store, and you can still use. I mean, in California, you can still go to the gas station and the pharmacy and stuff like that. It's just
it's
they don't want people
falling
around outside,
Yeah, forcing people to make smart decisions. The hard part is nobody wants to be forced to do anything. So the second you challenge it, everybody's like, I'm going to do what I want. And it's like, come on. It's like that. That's what's been really frustrating. And so yeah, my biggest frustrations are the people that are just going about their daily lives, and it's like, wait a minute. So like, Jill and I need something. It's like there's no reason for the both of us to go out and have a good time and hang out and everything. It's
right.
why not just be one of us? One of us goes out. Where it's funny. When I came back from Buffalo, when I came back from the grocery store, I literally came straight in. I threw my dirty clothes the clothes I wore out, right into the washing machine, and I jumped in the shower. I'm like, I probably am fine, but there's no I got plenty of clothes. I got running water. Why not take that precaution?
Exactly.
So, but then, so you get that, and then you got the hoarders, and that are taxing the supply chain, and they're buying up all the water. They're buying up all the toilet paper. I was dumbfounded when I walked in, and I was like, there's not a thing. The things that I found comical when I walked through the grocery store, what was gone. I remember looking at it saying, okay, all of the chicken is gone. All of the hamburger is gone. But
pretty much all the meat.
I could buy. Maybe it was just at the timing I went, but all of the beef products were out. I could buy filet. And I'm like, all right, I'll buy some filet. Why not? I bought a bunch of fillets. But like you get into all the vegetables there, but I walked to the bread aisle and I'm like, crap, Moxie only likes, wheat bread. Ironically, what kid only likes wheat bread? But Moxie only likes wheat bread. So, and I'm like, the only bread up here is like hot dog rolls, hamburger buns, white bread, and not a single thing of wheat bread. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. That row is like 120 feet long and there's no wheat bread.
When I went, there was literally nothing on it. Like that whole thing was completely bare, gone, empty. It was just unbelievable.
It's so weird. A lot of people are mad that they're changing their hours, but it's because you guys are taxing, and like they can't even restock the shelves. Like by doing it, it allows the shelf stockers to be able to restock the shelves without having to interact with the public.
Yeah, exactly. And it starts to put that additional strain on it too, where it's not just a matter of getting, orders back to the stores, but it's like, okay, now if every store is out, those suppliers, they start somewhere, right? And they're not going to be able to deliver everything everywhere at the same time. So they're creating that shortage to get everything back out. So it's, even if there's not a supply issue, it's could potentially take a couple additional days just to get that distribution to the spot that needs it, because just everybody's bare.
Yeah, no, it is so weird. It is a very weird state of mind. I don't know. I actually deep down, I don't have a problem with if our state said, you know what, done, y'all are staying in and you got to stay in. And if you need to go out, if you've got an essential job, or if your job is still, you can still do your work and you can go out. I support going out and trying to make your money, but the problem is that people aren't exercising good precaution. Like I mentioned, that lady out at the grocery store just shoveling chips in, and she walked through the aisle. Like, what are you doing? Like that's not helping the matter.
Well, she's hoarding and stockpiling unnecessary supply.
Exactly. It was insane, and it's just like, I mean, if we could get people to slow up, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for it, but I just look at it. I'm like, I just struggle because it's weird.
So last one for you. What's your picture? How do you see this thing all playing out in the next 6 months? How bad do you think it's going to be? How soon do you think things are going to go back to normal? Do you have a gut on it, or?
I have to say that I tend to lean towards the concept that that we will start to get stuff back to normality. Probably, I am hopeful that I want to say within a month, by the end of by the end of April, we'll start to see a good solid decline and start to be able to activate some of these things. My only fear is that it's one of those things that if you don't stop it, the risk is always going to be there that it can come right back again.
Right.
So,
get that second bump.
Yeah. So I'm not sure as of right now, I'm hopeful that it's 3 to 4 month thing that we can get down to like a zero situation, because I know a lot of the sunlight, the daylight, the summer months tends to veer off a lot of these types of viruses and stuff. So I'm hopeful that the summer will have that impact. But right now, there's not a lot known about this whole thing. So, it could. I've heard everything from, it's a couple months to, Greg Dodge said actually on one of our meetings, he's like, I heard up to 18 months. I was like, Jesus, don't even say that yet, because that's not, nobody wants to even hear that. I don't think it's an 18-month deal. I think it'll, you've already seen that China has numbers that are going down now. Now, the problem is that I want to see what's going to happen. So now China's trending down, and they're starting to lax up some of the things that, at least as I understand it. So if they're laxing things up, are they going to see a spike because they're starting to lax up some of the things that they put into place to try to stop it? That's going to be the key telltale in my mind is, how good are we going to be at stopping it permanently? That's the big one.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the global numbers right now in China. This is the first day that China has reported 0 new cases from internal sources. They did report 39 new cases, but they said that all 39 of those were imported. But I don't trust Chinese numbers at this point. Like I find that hard to believe. And then you look at the next row down, looking at Italy, 5,986 new cases with 627 new deaths, which is by far the largest single day total recorded by any country throughout this pandemic. So
I'm confused too, though. Like what's happening with the numbers in the sense, from a general sense, like, we have like a million different people reporting numbers. Like the CDC has different numbers than what's being reported on the, CBS and NBC and the WHO, everything else. Like, and nobody has the same numbers on a daily rate. And it's like, I don't know who to believe anymore. I'm trying to figure that out. Like who the right total person is.
So the best one that I've found and the most consistent one is Johns Hopkins. If you just do a search for Johns Hopkins COVID map, they have like a dashboard of cases. You can kind of.
I typed in JOH and it popped right up. It popped right up. Take a look at.
Yeah, you'll see most of the news sources are actually pulling their numbers from this. WHO only updates their numbers daily, I believe, and it's fairly early in the day, so it's always way behind. I don't even look at CDC because like the website's useless. Like I don't like. I've just not found any value in that. There's another good one. I found some guy out of Europe. I did just a Google search for COVID-19 Power BI. And he had tapped into some real-time data with a Power BI dashboard that you can click through. That's kind of slick, but that's what I typically use. And then Twitter, I've got some sources on Twitter that I like to follow.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're more optimistic than I am. I think we're going to be. I'm hoping you're right with the summer and the weather turning and the impact lessening when it gets a little bit better. But I think we're in this with at least some sort of restriction through the end of the summer. And I don't think we're talking about economic recovery until, calendar Q4 probably is my timeline.
I think that's fair. Let's be very real. I mean, I do think that I'm banking a lot on the summer, and I'm banking a lot on the fact that while the U.S. has taken and our states have taken action, it's been slow, or feels like it's slow. I feel like it's faster than what's happened in the rest of the world. So I'm hopeful that that'll have an impact. Yeah, I know a lot of people are looking at like the curves of cases in the United States and comparing it to that of Italy, saying it's the same.
It's worse now.
But that's the curve, right? But you also have to consider the fact that the population is different in the U.S. too. So the percentage of population versus Italy, though, is it's about 6 times.
Sure,
we're about 6 times the size of Italy. So percent of, I mean, we're following the same curve, but hopefully that, what we put into place and the procedures and the precautions that we're taking right now are starting to have an impact on that. I'm hoping that we're going to start seeing our numbers to start to veer away from the percentage of cases from that of Italy, and hopefully that, what we're doing now and just education of the general public of the severity of the situation is going to start to have a good impact on people. It's one of those situations that you don't really have an answer to, and you have hopes that, like I said, I'm hopeful that the weather's going to have an impact. I'm hopeful that the United States is going to have one of those things that, that because we're slow, but we weren't the slowest that we could have been as well.
For
we
sure.
just kind of shrugged it off, and I feel like we're making some pretty big, substantial steps. The biggest challenge is we've never challenged the legal system of our state constitution, our federal constitution, and all of the legislature and regulations that we have to follow from a national government standpoint. It's not as simple as just saying, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it. It's days worth of time that has to go into figuring out how you're going to do it and not get sued at the end of this. Because, maybe this thing does blow over and the sun comes out and it friggin' burns this thing off and it literally all goes away. And all of a sudden, every town municipal is going to get sued by their residents and because we didn't follow protocol. And you have that way in the back of your mind. And we're trying to, I'm of the opinion, and I know Adam is too. Adam and I have been talking about this forever. I stand back and I say, look, I'm going to do the right thing and that's in my opinion. And if it goes against a state law, I don't really care. My whole general, when we first held our first Skype meeting, I said, you know what, we owe it to the town to come up with a plan and figure out what the hell we're going to do. And I am not going down to the town hall. I am not going to televise this right away. If we can find a way to make it happen, great. But I'm not going down to the town hall and sitting in a room with the public and having this meeting. I will not do it, but I don't want to not talk about this. And it's we're going to talk about it. We're going to record it. We're going to post it, and we're going to share it, and we're going to ask for the public to get back an input. And at the end of the day, we're doing what we think is right based on the current situation of this crisis. And you know what? If you have a problem with it, that's when I'm we kind of have the opinion. If you watch the video, Adam literally said, "Fuck him." That was his exact word. And he's on camera and it's on public. And I'm I agree with him though. We're doing the best thing we can in the safest manner we possibly can think of. And I'm not going to let I'm not going to let an RSA that isn't prepared for this situation restrict our ability to be effective and good leaders in the positions that we're in. And I don't want to go put myself at risk or my family at risk just to try to go and keep something functioning. Because then all of a sudden, if you're doing that, all of a sudden, if we were, let's picture it this way, right? Our president is our president, and if all of a sudden he's just going about his daily life trying to keep up with everything, all of a sudden he's sick and he's over 60. It could turn out that way, and then you start trickling down. You could completely wipe out your entire your government structure if people just didn't try to look for ways to do things differently. And I think that's what that's been my feeling on this right from the start. And I really adamantly think that, we need to do it that way. So we'll see.
I'm with you. It's a time to not be held back by, jumping through hoops just to jump through hoops. You need to do what's right and right for you, your family, but also what's right for everybody you represent as a member of the Board of Selectmen, and, what's in their best interest. So,
yeah.
Cool, man. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. We'll have to do another. You got to invite me to one of those game nights. We'll have to play some Yahtzee or something.
I know, right? Yeah, no, I'm all in. I think it'll be fun. It's got to break out some of these games and have some virtual fun. I think Jill's gonna have virtual drinks with her friends. They're gonna sit around, gather around the table, and sip wine or something like that. We'll see.
Get you all on the big screens, and there you go.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Have a good one. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hey, have a good one.
All right, you too. See ya.
Yep. Bye.